And we're live. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a delayed, intentionally delayed, not unintentional, announced well in advance delayed episode of the whatever this is thing. I'm Justin Lee, as you know, if you've ever watched any of this before. And with me today is my friend Matthew Adam, who is in the middle of a name change and so was advertised under a different name. But Matthew is a filmmaker and the founder and CEO of Rainbow Creative, and I'm super excited that he's here. And I did not forget to turn his mic up like I did to Matthew Vines last week. Hi, Matthew.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic.
Thanks for being here and for doing this. So we have a
Of
ton of
course.
stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
And I am so let me just say to anybody who is watching live, tomorrow I'm going to be in Grand Rapids. I'm going to be speaking at Calvin College tomorrow. So like tonight I have been, in addition to getting everything set up for this conversation, I have also been like packing and getting everything ready for my talk there. So I feel like I'm going in a million directions, but I want to have this conversation with Matthew because, for one thing, he's a cool guy, and I want to support his work. But it feels like there's a lot of stuff I think for us to talk about that it feels like the right moment. So yeah, so let's start maybe with like tell us about Rainbow Creative and what is that all about?
Yes, so Rainbow Creative, I started it a year ago this month actually.
Oh,
And
nice.
it's a production company, essentially. So I do strategy and storytelling for mission-driven brands. I actually came born and raised in LA, and I came out to San Francisco to launch this, which people often look at me backwards. They're like, wait, why aren't you in LA? But I've done the LA thing. I was there for 30 years and I wanted to change. So I moved up to San Francisco. And the idea came because I remember I was working on a shoot once in LA, and there was a San Francisco tech company that was in LA, and I thought, well, what if they had someone who knew film in San Francisco? So I basically packed up my car with all my things, drove up to San Francisco with a dream to start this company to be able to connect brands to creatives. So what Rainbow Creative is, we do strategy and storytelling for mission-driven brands, but I'm the broker between the creative and the brand. So we're really an anti-agency. It's my basically job to connect creatives to amazing work because there's tons of creatives out there, and they're working at a bunch of different jobs. But what if they had a platform they could go and work at their life's work? So basically, it's, let's say if I have someone who's working on a hearing aid, I'll connect them with a creative who's actually passionate about that work. So not only will they get a creative who's passionate about it, but it saves them the costs because they're working directly with a creative, and then there's give back piece to it, and we just have a lot of fun. So basically, Rainbow Creative is a collective of creatives just working in our best work.
So I know nothing about that whole world. So like,
Okay.
I think that made about as much sense to me as could be expected.
Yeah.
But it sounds like interesting work, and yeah, I wouldn't have expected that in San Francisco. By the way, one of the comments coming in from the live feed is from Kevin O'Brien, who says, "Congrats on your first year." Kevin is a
Thank
fellow
you.
a fellow filmmaker
Yeah.
who has done a film dealing with LGBT Christian
Nice.
stuff. So, speaking of which, maybe like let's talk a little bit about your story because I want to talk about your work, and I particularly want to talk about your new short film Human,
Yeah.
which I really like. But I mean, first, like, I know your story. I have to pretend I
Yeah.
don't know your story for the sake of
Right.
this. But like, what's
Yeah.
the short version of like your story, like your whole, yeah.
Yeah.
What's your
Well,
deal, Matthew?
my deal is I was born a creative. So I actually found this picture that my mom made these baby books and she like cut out pictures and write notes around them. And I was in my bassinet and there was a message that said, Over the Rainbow was playing somewhere over the rainbow. So like Rainbow Creative has literally been in my psyche since I was 3 months old. But the filmmaking and creative aspect started when I was a kid. I used to, instead of playing outside, I used to put on these plays in my bedroom. So so we had a bunk bed, and I put like a blanket over it to be the curtain, and I made my brother be the actor, and I would start the like play off of it, like, Mom, come in here. And I was like 7, 8 years old, and then we would have like a light behind the curtain. It's like Tinkerbell starting the show, and then we would put on these amazing performances for my mom and dad. So I was always creating things. And then my dad actually sent me to a summer camp at USC on screenwriting right before I started college. And I applied for film schools because I was like, oh, this is cool. I get to make movies. I don't have to like do homework. It was definitely homework involved. But I applied to the screenwriting program. Then I got into a few film schools and chose Biola as my film school to go to. And then when I was 18, I made my first big film, Be the Man, which like won a Directors Guild of America award. And I was like, oh, I guess I should keep doing this. So I pretty much have been making films since I was 18.
So William wants to know, what do you mean by a creative? When you say a creative, you with your LA speak. For us mere mortals, what do you mean by a creative?
So a creative is someone who wears rainbow feathers in their hair, and no, a creative is just someone who works in the creative.
I think I do not think that word means what you think it means. But anyway,
okay.
What's the line? You keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means.
Sure. So a creative is someone who works in the creative realm. So if you work in film, if you're a photographer, if you're a designer, if you basically make money off of your creative work, I call that a creative. But I think everybody has a creative aspect to them. If you play the piano, if you knit, I mean, all that's creative work. But to say a creative is basically you make your living on doing creative work.
Okay. So, I interrupted. Was there more to the story that you wanted to tell beyond Biola?
Yeah, well, Biola is where it really kind of like started to go up because I was in film school and had all the resources. So I would basically make a film a year while I was in college. So I directed two of my like big short films, Be the Man and Choices. Then I produced some films, and it was just always working on things. We had to do film projects for school. But I actually directed 3 films there, produced about 2, and then after I left college, I just continued producing. I took about a 10-year gap because student loans were like, hey, we're here, and I was like, oh, I guess I got to get a job. So I got some jobs with some really incredible companies. And then it came to the time where it's like, okay, well, it's time to make something else. And then 10 years later, I made Human, and here we are back doing the creative thing.
Okay, so there's a lot I want to unpack, but I guess because we've been referring to this film Human,
Yeah.
tell us about when I put this on YouTube, I think this would be a great place for me to put in a trailer for Human.
And how much more blood will be shed, and how much more lives will be taken, and how much louder do we need to scream? We are human. We are human. We are human.
I think I was in a little creative rut. And then I found this artist. Her name is Ariel Astoria. My friend Whitney Aloyan. She passed me this album that was a spoken word album. I never heard of a spoken word album before. But Ariel Astoria, she made this album called Symphony of a Lioness. And it's just these incredible pieces on how to live in your creativity and how to not be afraid and just all these amazing words. So I found this album and I reached out to her on Twitter and I was like, Ariel, I have to work with you. Like, your words are amazing. I thought she was going to have like 2 million followers and like all these things. So I reached out to her on Twitter and it said, email her and she'll get back in 2 days. And I was like, ooh, she's about her business. Okay, cool. And then I got an email back from her and we met in person. We were both in LA. We met in Pasadena, beautiful Pasadena, and we just met about her work. And I was like prepared. I was picturing her on my things, and then she shared a piece with me to like make a video for. I was like, okay, cool. But while I was researching her, I found this piece she made on Human, which is a human observation on Black Lives Matter. And I remember I was having dinner by myself in public, and I started weeping watching this poem. And I knew I was like, and the story came to me, and I had to make something about it. So I reached out to Ariel and I said, I have this idea for Human. This is the first piece I want to make. It actually took 2 years to make the project, just because I was like work and, things like that. But 2 years later, I funded it, part crowdfunding, majority my money, and people donated their time to us to work, like some incredible actors, my friends who are crazy professional actors. They donated their time, and producers donated their time. We just came together to make this piece. And we had a national tour last year. That was the beta version. We went to LA, DC, and San Francisco, and it did well. So we're actually taking it globally, starting actually this month. Our first screening is this week in San Francisco, and we're going to be in Atlanta, Houston, Berlin, Amsterdam, Hamburg, and all these different places with the project. And basically, with the project, we don't want people just to watch it and share it, and then that's it. With these screenings, we're actually going to show a series of short films on Black Lives Matter and just race and the conversations. And there's going to be a discussion afterwards led by Behind the Scene podcast, which is an amazing podcast on race, behind this SEEN scene. And we're going to have music artists, and we're just going all around the world, and everybody's going to leave with a booklet that's going to help you carry on the conversation with some, readings like, Ta-Nehisi Coates and Cornel West, and some prompts and things. So we didn't want this just to be a piece that says, okay, Black Lives Matter, and have another hashtag, forget about it. We need to change minds, because that's how this problem is going to be hopefully solved. So we've created this program that we're going to tour around for people to really take this film and start discussions and conversations, because that's where the change is actually going to happen.
So, okay. So this is a whole thing, right? So
it's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing. It's more than just a film. So in terms of the film piece of this is, it's a short film that
7 minutes,
uses the words of this spoken word piece, and then combines that with images to tell a story, and it's very emotional. I've seen it. It's like it's really good. And so you're talking about like this problem that exists, and well, first, hey, let me bring in a comment here from my friend Randall.
Randall.
Randall says, "Hey Matthew, glad to hear of your success. Looking forward to your film work. Biola film majors represent." Yes,
Biola. I love it.
So, and you're talking about Black Lives Matter, which is like oh my gosh, there's so much I want to like talk about here, and I'm trying to decide just like what to start with. So, like, I feel like when I get frustrated that I feel like often when somebody says Black Lives Matter, it depends a lot on the community that you're in, how people respond, right? So there are some spaces in this country where somebody says that and everybody's like, yes, of course, we're, on board, whatever. But there are, I think, a lot of spaces in this country where when somebody says those words, people immediately think of a partisan kind of a political a movement and conversation and whatnot. And that's frustrating because we need to have a conversation about race in this country that is not a partisan political conversation, right? This is not a Republicans versus Democrats thing, or even a Black Americans versus police thing.
Right.
So when you talk about this, when you talk about like this problem that exists and everything that like inspired you to do this work, what is this for you personally? Like, why is this important?
Yeah, so I mean, the main reason why I was attracted to the piece is that it breaks down all those barriers. It brings it down to a human issue. We don't go with all the stuff of like, but his past and this and this. It's like, there's a line in the film where Ariel says, "I'm afraid to fall in love with a black man because is that not the same as putting a ticking time bomb on my heart?" Like, how do you respond to that? You're just like, okay, I get it, cool. No more violence, awesome. Like this piece, like her lines in there are just ridiculous because it just breaks it down to it's not a black and white issue, it's a human issue. I don't care what his past was, I don't care what he did, he still died. And like the reason why it's so impactful to me is I grew up in Inglewood, and somehow in my existence, I'm one of the three men who didn't end up in jail. I'm one of the three men who didn't end up, in a gang. The statistics are there. Like if you look at me as a race statistically, I should not be around, or I should not be where I am today. So I had to find the piece to say something about this, and this just broke it down just to humanity and like no longer issue. Like we're human beings as well. We're just trying to love, we're just trying to work. And why am I a target? I drive a fancy car, and every time I get in the car, I feel a little bit nervous. If there's a cop behind me, I'm like, what does he think? Does he think I'm a drug dealer? Does he think this? Does he think that? I literally have a station on my radio where I put on classical music, my mom taught us when we were children to, when a cop pulls you over, and it has happened to me, make sure to have your hands on the steering wheel. Cop, can I turn the light on? Thank you. Can I reach into my glove compartment? There's a whole calculated thing. I just don't have the same luxuries as everybody else has, and that's just reality, and that's a problem. So I speak to people through art, and when I found this piece, I had to make something of it, and I had to make something that carried on because, I'm tired of the hashtags. Like we didn't want to, I don't want to release this film when another hashtag has come. And I know like yesterday, probably someone unfortunately lost their life. There's not a big thing going on right now. And we just wanted to put this out so people are having these conversations, pulling your, uncle or cop aside who has these just preconceived notions and views, and hey, watch this film, just to think differently about things. I know you have your thoughts and everything, but just watch this. And, I feel like if people watch this, there's no more question because her words in there is just so powerful. It breaks it down. It's like, yo, it's me. I love you.
Some of the greatest, like I've heard variations on this idea from several great artists, writers, and other creators. This idea that a great piece of art, a great novel, a great story, a great film, a great poem, a great piece of music, you can't adequately say what it means, what it's about, because it, like, if there were a way to explain it without the art, then you wouldn't need the art.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things that I really appreciated seeing your film, is that it is, to me, it feels deeply relevant and deeply personal in a way that is getting at our humanity, but not glossing over our differences, and the fact that you and I, just like listening to you talk about the stuff that your mom told you, like the stuff that you were taught, is so different from the stuff that I was taught. My parents never had a conversation with me about, how to behave if I get pulled over so that I don't get shot. That was not a conversation that we ever had to have. I think you and I have had a lot of conversations about race.
Right.
So I should maybe let me take a step back real quick and just say, like, we've had some interesting conversations about race. Like we were hanging out one time, and we went to this history museum in North Carolina.
Right.
And in this history museum, there was a section where it was dealing with the racist history of North Carolina. And there was this really, like, this
I know.
moment. There was a place you had to, like, to walk from one room into the next room. You had to walk through one of two doors, And one of the doors had a sign over it that said white, and the other door had a sign over it that said colored. And it was this weird, like, it was clearly making a point about history, you know, the history of the, but like for me as a white guy, it was deeply uncomfortable because it's like I don't know how to walk from this room into the next room, because one way or another, even though this doesn't actually mean anything, one way or another, I feel like I'm participating in something that I don't want to participate in, and I don't know how to not participate in it. You know what I mean?
Right.
But and I don't know if you remember this, but
I remember.
do you remember that you wanted to take a picture? Do you remember that?
Did I? No.
So you were taking a bunch of pictures, and you wanted to take a picture of like a kind of a joke picture of us like in front of the signs.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, absolutely not. You cannot take a picture of me standing under the like whites only sign. I will not do it.
I remember,
but like seriously though, you know, as we've had these conversations, and I've had conversations with other Black friends of mine, when I hear my Black friends talk about the kinds of things that they heard about race, the kinds of conversations they had about race growing up, it makes me realize that I grew up really never having conversations about race. Like in my family, we did not really talk about race. We talked about it only to the extent of like, you know, treat everybody equally, don't be prejudiced against people because of their race, and you know, and that was it. And so like for so many years, I thought to be a good white guy, I needed to just like never talk about race. That like if you I thought as a white guy, if I ever talked about race, that like white people only talk about race when they're being racist. Like I heard white people, like older white people, say things like, well, I was at the supermarket and there was a Black man in front of me who was taking so long. And I'm like, I don't know, why is his race relevant to this, you know? And so it was like, you know, for me, it was like, okay, so when you bring race into a conversation for no reason, then you're being racist. And it was really hard for me, having grown up that way, thinking this is how you deal with racism, by never talking about race, by being, you know, colorblind. Stephen Colbert used to do this gag of like, you know, oh, I don't see race. You'll have to tell me what race that person is because I don't see race, you know, and it was a joke. But like, I kind of thought that's what I was supposed to be. And so it was really weird for me when I started having some of these conversations, and like, my friends were like, no, like we need to talk about race. And I felt like I didn't know how to talk about it. I didn't have the language to, and I was afraid. I think a lot of white people are afraid to talk about race because we're afraid we're going to say the wrong thing and offend somebody. And so we just try to like not talk about it and hope that if we don't talk about it, the problem will get fixed. I have a lot of feelings about this, but I know that as many feelings as I have, I know you have a lot more feelings. Like,
right. I mean, it's scary to talk about race, and I was scared to talk about race, honestly, because it's like, what if I say the wrong thing if I make something on Black Lives Matter, you know? And that's why it took me so long to make it. You know, because the last thing I want to do, like when I'm at home, like at this work on a Black Lives Matter film, it's a lot. So it actually took me a lot of courage to talk about it. So you're not the only one who's afraid to talk about it. We all are uncomfortable with conversations, but you know, that's where the change happens. So the purpose of this film is to start the conversations for people who are uncomfortable with it. You know, and it's important because, I mean, everyone has people of all races and colors. And I mean, humans not just about Black people. Like when you watch the film, like some of the lines, it's really about everyone. When the Muslim ban came out, I did a post about this film. Like I wanted to like put so many more things in it. And it's important to talk about, and it'll take a step, sure. And it takes a little bit of courage. It does. And you're going to be a little nervous about it. And that's okay. but you're probably nervous about it because you care a little bit. And that's what you should move forward and have that conversation. And when you open up the conversation to a person of color, they're like, yes, let's talk about this. And we're going to give you grace. We're not just going to say there, oh, he's ignorant, he doesn't know what he's talking about. We're actually open to the conversations because that's where the change is going to happen. So don't be afraid. Have those conversations. Ask the right questions. And I've had friends who reached out to me, when Black Lives Matter things were happening, like, hey, are you okay? Hey, can we talk about this? And I've had some amazing friends who helped contribute to the project and who were just really want to be a part of the conversation. So I know they're out there, and don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to watch the film. It's going to make you cry, probably. It still makes me cry. But that's where, we can really kind of have forward movement, because there's no more time to be stagnant. Forward movement only, and we have the power to do that. So just open it up. Take somebody out to dinner. It's all love.
So there's more to talk about this, but I want to bring in some of the comments that have come in on Facebook. Renee says this conversation is so important. Thank you for going there. Adrian knows the museum I'm talking about.
Nice.
And Rob says, thank you for having this conversation on the birthday of Rosa Parks. I didn't know this was Rosa Parks' birthday. Wow. That was not intentional, but if that's right, then incredible. Happy accident. And so there, Elliot says, the movie The Hate You Give is very powerful. This is absolutely a human issue. I haven't gotten to see it. I want to very much.
It's really very good, very good.
So somebody wanted, a couple of people are talking about the film and how to get the film. We'll talk more about that at the end of this, but just to be clear, the film is not available for people to purchase or anything at this point.
It's available to view online, actually.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, you can watch the whole thing.
Where can they go to watch the whole thing?
They can go to findyourrainbow.com. So that's find your rainbow with one R/human.
Find your rainbow with one R. So not your rainbow. It's your rainbow.
Right. Your rainbow. Yes. Findyourrainbow.com/human.
I feel like we talked about, I don't remember if I talked about The Good Place with somebody else on this, or if it was just in one of my videos where I talked about The Good Place, but I'm totally right now hearing Kristen Bell going, "Ya basic." So
yeah, babe. I love it.
Christy says, oh wow, yes it is Rosa Parks B-Day. So
nice.
I didn't know. So William had a question that actually helps to segue into something else I want to talk about. So let's go there. He says, do you think that the 400 years of slavery in America continues to impact African Americans today? If so, what are the ways it impacts? So in other words, does the history of slavery continue to impact African Americans today? Surely yes.
Yeah.
And what are some of the ways that it impacts? I certainly have ideas. I imagine you do as well.
I mean, it really goes down to the deep-rooted racism, deep-rooted thoughts there were, because we didn't immigrate to this country. We were brought to this country, and just the foundations of the South and everything has still carried on, still generation after generation after generation. I mean, we're seeing it, and it's still relevant because we're still different. We're still seen as different. There's still, when I tell people I like hockey, they're like, "What? You're a black guy who likes hockey?" I'm like, "Yeah, because it's awesome." So, there's still these preconceived notions that I should do this or I should do that. And all that stems down all to the very beginning. So, obviously there's definitely, progression still, but it's still there because there's people who still have deep-rooted thoughts and feelings about that time, and they still look at us differently just because of this. And hopefully that'll change one day.
I mean, there's a great analogy that I've heard different variations of a Monopoly game, where if you sit down to play Monopoly, well, first of all, why are you playing Monopoly? Because it's not a very good game. There are so many better board games out now. Just throw it out. But so the analogy is, you sit down to play Monopoly, and you're playing with unfair rules that certain people get more money to start, they get to do certain things that other people don't get to, whatever. The rules are like really, really radically unfair. And so over time, as you play with these really unfair rules, the people who the unfair rules benefit are doing really well in the game, and the people who the unfair rules don't benefit are not doing well in the game. And it's not because of anything to do with their skill as players, it's the rules are really unfair. So then you stop that game, and those folks leave and say, oh, hey, to their friends, like, oh, you can take over for me, you can take over for me. And the new people come and they sit down and continue to play the game and say, well, gosh, they're playing with unfair rules. Let's make the rules fairer.
Right.
Even if the rules then are completely fair, you can't, unless you start the game completely over, you can't erase the fact that if you sit down in somebody else's seat, you're either benefiting or being hurt by the unfair rules that existed prior to your being there. And you didn't create those rules. You didn't, but like there they are, they affect you. And in real life, there's no like, let's start the game over. We don't have a way to start the game over. And so we're in this weird place where it's like, how do we, the financial disparity that exists among other things in this country is certainly part of that legacy of slavery and of racism, and racism's not done. I mean, I think one of the things that I've started to recognize, like as a white guy watching movies that deal with racism, some of which are very good, like Hidden Figures, which I loved, I thought was fantastic. But the thing is, a lot of those films deal with racism by looking at examples of racism from the past that don't really exist today, like separate bathrooms. And it makes it easy for me as a white guy to go, oh, well, thank goodness that's done. And I don't, I would never shout that word at somebody. And so, I get to feel good about myself. And the reality is that there are lots of more subtle forms of racism and dealing, and there's not a snap our fingers and fix it solution. It's something that we have to be talking about and working on constantly and aware of and listening to each other. Because there's a lot of stuff I don't know. Like I remember the first time that I heard somebody suggest that that police officers might sometimes treat people differently because of racial prejudice. And I sort of, intellectually I was like, well, I mean, I suppose theoretically that could happen, but it didn't really strike me as something that like actually was a real serious problem, because I mean, I'd never experienced it. I'd never seen it, and it wasn't until like I started having conversations with folks, like, or listening to them, that I was like, what, like that really happened to you? And like that I could see like a pattern that blew my mind. Like I never would have thought, and now like I'm afraid, like, so I remember the news about Trayvon Martin.
Yeah.
You talk about that line that's in your film about, the ticking time bomb.
Yeah.
Stories like that, I just remember when that happened, just like crying, watching television, thinking about the people who I care about, who could have been walking through a neighborhood in a hoodie and somebody could have thought they were in the wrong place and started a violent conflict. And I don't want the world to be that way. And I don't know how to fix it. And I don't have to live with it. I don't have to worry about walking through, a ritzy neighborhood in a hoodie that somebody's going to think something bad about me. But I do worry about it for other people that I care about, but I don't know what it's like to like have to deal with that every day.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, I love like I have a favorite hoodie, and when I walk outside with it, I just am looking over my shoulder constantly still. And like there's some scenes in the movie where I actually have a hoodie on and sunglasses, and and I was saying Ariel's words, and that was meant to be just a striking imagery of, like you see me without a hoodie, you see me with a hoodie, like why are you scared? She has lines like, why does my intelligence make you flinch? It's like, I'm intelligent. Like, why are you flinching just because I have a hoodie on? Like, I don't get it. I just don't understand it. And it's these preconceived notions that if we were just open up to have conversations with each other, that would change.
When you talk about being intelligent, what is it like to be a Black man having to navigate both the stereotypes that white people have about Black men, if they don't talk a certain way and behave a certain way, and depending, like based on like who you hang out with, who how you dress or whatever, and also having to navigate your identity as a Black man around other Black men and women who may use other kinds of slurs if you don't talk a certain way, dress a certain way, whatever.
Right.
Like, what's that like?
It's interesting because I don't want to be like, if I'm around, just a majority African American community, I don't want to feel like, I'm not in touch. So how do I stay in touch yet still stay true to who I am? And I think it comes down to just staying true to who you are, in the African American community. If you go to college, if you have these great jobs and everything, they're proud of you. And it's, everybody's responsibility because there's different class and everything with all different races, to like give back. So how I like navigate it, is by doing a lot of listening, when I'm in both of those arenas, because I don't know everything. So it's like I'll be home with my family or be home in like Compton or whatnot, and I'll do a lot of listening, more so, and a lot of observing. And there's times where I'll get back into, my days when I lived in Inglewood, and it just gets more comfortable and things like that. And, but yeah, I think it just, the way I navigate it is just by observing and kind of like listening more, because there's still a lot for me to learn, from both arenas. And I think there's especially a lot to learn in arenas where I am in the majority African community, because I live in San Francisco, and in a nice neighborhood in San Francisco. I don't see a lot of things that are happening at home, and I make sure to visit LA often. I make sure, like, that's part of the reason why we're going to Houston, we're going to Atlanta, and more places, because how people are responding to human in San Francisco is vastly different than people responding to human in parts of LA. I remember actually when I flew down to LA for the LA run of Human, I met a girl at Starbucks, and I just ended up talking about what I was doing, and then she started crying. She said, "My brother got shot by the cops and killed." And sorry, I just got the chills thinking about that. And
yeah.
I don't see that reality all the time, and it sucks. And it's important for us to go down in these neighborhoods to do it, because their reality is that their multiple brothers have been killed by the cops, and somehow I haven't. And why is that? Why am I lucky that I haven't? Or why is my brother lucky? He lives in New Orleans and has a family and kids, and like, that could be my brother. And it's not fair. And that's why yeah, I had to make this film because it's just not fair.
You and I had some conversation um, about your relationship to the police in general. It's not a simple like us versus them thing. You want to like say something about just
Yeah.
family and
um, yeah, I have some uncles who are cops, and they're around it every day. And, I hear the stories on, it's not just us versus them. It's just very complicated. So it was, I had to be very, very careful with making this piece, not to say the wrong thing about cops and things like that. And Ariel did an amazing job of writing something that really navigated through those waters. But yeah, um, yeah.
so we got a Randall has got a question for you.
Uh-huh.
Um, and again, he was reading my mind. He was taking us on a segue. Uh, I don't mean on a Segway like the vehicle,
Yeah.
the other spelling of Segway, but maybe
Right.
on a vehicle.
Yeah.
Um, to where I wanted to go. So he says, "What are some struggles you've faced when trying to find work and in dating when it comes to being black?"
Oh man.
So there's some
Yeah.
overlapping questions here, but go ahead. Yeah,
Yeah.
what?
Um, I mean, when it comes to dating, the race definitely exists there, as well. Those preconceived notions to be a black man, it's definitely those preconceived notions to be a black gay man. It's like, then you add faith into it. It's like I'm forever single for the rest of my life. Sometimes it's great. I'll just make another movie in my spare time. Um, but like for me, it's interesting. Um, I just try to just be myself the most I can, with it. When dating and starting to talk to someone or whatnot. I guess I work to break the barriers down at the beginning, by just talking about my variety of different interests. Like I am the biggest Mumford and Sons fan on the planet, as well as the biggest Beyonce fan. I'm really her second cousin. Not a lot of people know that. And like I just like a variety of different things. So I can speak the Mumford language, I can speak the Beyonce language, I can speak the ASAP Rocky language. Like I'm a rainbow of a human being. So like when I'm talking to someone, I feel like I actually have to work harder to say that, to show those things, because they might think, I'm just one way or think one way. And in the gay community, there's black men are sometimes a fetish, which is so frustrating. And, gosh.
Right?
So yeah, how I navigate it is I'm still single because I'm busy. Um, and there's just a lot to explain.
That's
Like
what
I
I
think
tell
that's
people too.
yeah.
That's what I tell people too. I'm single because I'm busy. Yeah,
I'm busy.
that's it.
Yeah. That's just I'm busy.
Yeah, so that's okay. So that's I mean, so that's an issue too, right? Like you talk about
Yeah.
like the fetishizing of people of color in the
Yeah.
gay male community, where on the one hand you've got people saying no blank 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 blank. I only date people of my race. I don't whatever. Um, so then if you're black, if you're Asian, whatever, like
Right.
not interested. And then on the other side, you've got this kind of like, oh yeah, I'm really into black guys, I'm really into Asian guys, and I have a stereotype of what that means,
Right.
and what black men are like, and what Asian men are like, and what and I want to fit you into a box, like I
Yeah.
like you're a commodity. I'm looking for a my I had a relationship with a black man and now it's over, and now I want another black man to like stick into that
Oh,
spot, and
yeah.
nothing about you matters. It's another form of dehumanizing.
Right. Yeah, it is, and that's why I'm still single, because I don't have the time to deal with that right now. Like, you just don't. If someone comes along and they're like not there, and I mean, I've dated various races and everything, like that'd be awesome. But I feel like it's a job to go through, and I just don't have the time. So I just kind of focus on my adventures and my company, and it's fun and have a lot of friends. And if someone comes out there and we can just have these hard conversations together and break down those preconceived notions together and work on walk a parallel path together, that would be awesome. But I'm just so frustrated by it. I don't have the time to do the work with what it takes.
Yeah. So, okay. I'm gonna ask you something that's not serious because we've had a lot of serious conversation.
Yeah.
So, actually, I don't know this. Do you play any games, video games, board games, any of this stuff?
No, I mean, me like
Are you a
everyone else,
Monopoly guy after I just insulted Monopoly?
I kind of am a Monopoly guy. I was really holding it in. I'm learning to play Settlers of Catan. It's so complicated. I don't get it. But I'm trying. Let's see, Mario Kart, of course. I don't really play games. I mean, I'm open to them. I've started playing Blockus, which is fun. When I come over to your house, we played games. I don't even remember the games that we played.
I don't
Um,
remember. It's been a while.
yeah, I love games. I love game night. I love what's the card game? Like I love apples to apples. I like games. Like I love game nights. Yeah.
So what do you do? What do you do for fun? Or like
Lots
do
of
you?
yoga. I mean, I
Okay.
try to have fun. I'm always working. I'm always emailing. I'm always handing in my business card. But for fun, I love I'm a foodie. I love eating out and experiences. Just having some conversations with friends. I'm sporadic. So right now I don't have a planned trip to go to LA in March, and by tomorrow I might have two plans. Like I'm a huge traveler. I can't wait for all the travel I'm going to do this year. I like Yeah, I'm appreciating nature a lot more. And San Francisco, the Bay Area, has a lot of. Now that I have a car now, like I'm gonna go hike John Muir Woods, and I read a ton, so I'm gonna pick up my read Muir in Muir Woods. Like that just sounds like Disneyland to me. I love Disneyland. I used to work at Disney and worked at Disneyland actually in Fantasyland in the park, so I know the park extremely well. So I'll actually be at Disneyland on Friday if anyone is around. Let's go party.
Dude,
So.
if I were closer, I would be there. You know how
You can
much I
be
love
closer. All you have
Disneyland.
to do is book a flight. It's simple. Like just book a flight. You'll be there. We'll have fun. Right? Friday, I'm making an announcement. Friday, I'm gonna be at Disneyland. Right now, I'm going by myself, and I'm just there to have fun and make friends and just put on all my Disney gear and just turn into Mojo Disney. Mojo Disney is fun.
Mojo. Okay,
So
so
yeah,
Mojo is your nickname, which is in
Mojo's
your
my nickname.
screen
Yeah.
names. Which every time you say it, I always in my head hear Mojo Jojo, which
That's not where it came from.
I know that's not where it came from. I know where it came from, but I still in my head I was always like Mojo Jojo, which I
Yeah.
don't know how many people who are watching this will get that, but some of the cool kids, some of the cool
Yeah.
kids will know what that's a reference to. The
Yeah.
rest of you, don't worry about it. Um, so okay, so well, so you're talking about Disneyland. Of course, I'm in
Yeah.
Orlando, so here I've got
Love,
my Epcot mug today.
love it. I
Uh,
love it.
you can't really see it, but anyway, it is. I
Yeah.
promise, it's an Epcot mug. Okay, so you said you want to travel. Where is one place that you would really love to travel that you have not traveled?
I mean,
Where
I've
do you
never
want to
been
go?
to Europe, so that's why I'm really excited about going to Europe for the tour.
Nice.
But yeah, I really want to go to Sydney, Australia. That's one place I'm definitely high on the list. I want to go to I want to go to Italy. I want to go to Amsterdam. Um, Lots of places. There's gonna be Mojo Global a lot this year.
Okay, so we're down to like our last 10 minutes. So let's pull in a few things. Let's see. This came in early and I can't remember if I pulled it up in the conversation. If I did, forgive me. I don't think I did, but like I'm always trying to like monitor the comments that come in while
Yeah.
like listening to the person who's talking. And uh but Elliot says that feeling of being a minority within a minority is so rough, or even being a minority within a minority within a minority, right?
Yeah.
There's so much, there are like so many overlapping things when you talk about sexuality, you talk about race, you talk about faith, you talk about like there are not a lot of black openly gay Christian filmmakers
Yeah.
I'm aware of.
Yeah.
um that there's always, I feel like any minority group, and a lot of us are members of one minority group or another. There's some,
Right.
group that we're part of that's, but when you're part of multiple groups, you're always kind of trying to do the dance, right? Like
Yeah.
figure out, um,
Right.
what do they call it? Code switching, where you're just like trying to like,
Yeah. Right.
um, but yeah, uh, Lisa says, what the two of you are doing with your transparency in this conversation is such an example of what we all need to be doing to move forward. She said that a while ago, but I'm going to pretend that she said that about our conversation about Disneyland, because it's absolutely, Disneyland is what we need.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for
That's
that.
what we need. Yeah.
No, I think we do need to, I mean, I think ultimately, like I more and more I'm coming to believe that we need to have difficult conversations, that we need to like, we all need to be willing to talk about things that we don't understand by like talking to
Yeah.
people who understand more and listening and
Right.
saying, am I getting this right? And tell me if I'm getting it wrong.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, like back to what I was saying earlier about being a white guy who's afraid of talking about race, like so often, like I hear other white people who like, you can tell they're really nervous talking about race because they're afraid of like using the wrong word. They're like, oh, well, I was talking to a gentleman who's half person of color.
Black? Can I say black? Yeah,
Can
you can
I,
say black.
am I, and I think it comes from a good place of like, I don't want to,
Right.
but it's, it's scary, but the only way you get comfortable with is if you have conversations.
Right.
And it's not, and I think it's really important. It's important for those of us who are white. I think it's important to make sure that we don't leave the burden of having conversations about race only on people of color. It shouldn't be only people of color who say, let's have this conversation about race. But also at the same time, when we have these conversations, like we shouldn't do all the talking. Like I think we should do some of the talking, but I also think we need to do a lot of the listening, because like I said, like this was stuff that I didn't talk about growing up. And so like, you've been thinking about this much more deeply than I have. And you've had a lot of experiences I've never had. And if I didn't have the opportunity to get to know you and like listen to some of those stories and those experiences, there's a lot I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Bum, 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 bum. Tell me about, I know what we haven't talked about that we need to talk about. Other stuff that you're doing, because it's not just
Oh,
human.
yeah.
Human is
Yeah, it's
awesome,
not
but
just
like
human.
you're doing other stuff. So like,
Yeah.
tell us about the other stuff that you're doing.
Sure, two big projects. So I'm producing a television series. It's called Follow Me, Marky Lee. It's going to be a digital series. It's made by my friend Bobo Chang. They've known for 14 years. We went to Biola together. And he's had lots of parts on like Jane the Virgin and Glee, and he's been a professional actor with him for a while. And he wrote this incredibly hilarious series, which basically his character, Marky Lee, he comes to Los Angeles to be a visionary filmmaker, but he's frustrated because his roommate has like 1 million followers just by posting selfies with like drinking protein, and it is just brilliant. Like Bobo's such an incredible writer. He writes comedy like Shakespeare. There's so many one-liners in this. So we're producing that. We're shooting it in April, May. So we're working on that. That one's going to be a lot of fun. I get to direct some comedy episodes using my comedic side. And then one project I'm super excited about that we shoot in a month is by this new gospel artist. His name is Terrence Wilson. His new EP is called Hope Alive, and you can find it on all the digital iTunes, Spotify, Tidal, everything. And we're producing a few music videos with him. And we just launched a fundraising campaign for that. And yeah, so my projects is Human Tour is going. We have our like first screening this week. But in a month, we're shooting the Hope Alive music videos, as well as Follow Me, Marky Lee, the TV series. I'm also working on a feature film called Rainbow. And you can actually follow the creative journey on Instagram, Rainbow Movie on Instagram. So you can follow me as I'm making it, and I'm writing that to shoot sometime probably end of this year, early next year. And then I have a lot of client work that's been coming in. So yeah, I get lots of downtime.
You
Lots
and
of
me
downtime.
both.
Right, yeah, lots of downtime. No, but I'm really excited to work on these projects. Terrence, like, just play his album after this, and man, like, you're gonna raise your hands. You're gonna like, yeah, this boy is anointed, and Bobo is hilarious. So I get to work with both of these amazing artists, and I can't wait to share more what my feature's about. Not quite ready to share it yet, but if you follow Rainbow Movie on Instagram, you can see it as the creative process unfolds. That one's actually been going for about a year or so as well. So yeah, I'm excited about this year.
Awesome. I'm going to give you a chance in a sec to like reiterate all your social media and stuff so people
Okay.
can follow you. But we just had a
Yeah.
comment come in that is, I think, maybe a good way to good way to wrap this conversation up before we get to that. This is from Tiffany, who wants to know, what are your best suggestions for having conversations slash getting to know people of other races when your community is fairly homogeneous?
I would say go to events, like go to things that you normally wouldn't go to. So, like go on Eventbrite and see, if there's a screening like Human, or if there's just like there's tons of nonprofits who do some really amazing work year round. So start there, go to an event, and then just have a conversation with people because all are always welcome to those, to that table. So I'd start if you don't know anybody and they're just not in your group by branching out and going to some things that you normally wouldn't go to, and even inviting a friend with you to help you feel comfortable. I think is a good place to start.
Awesome. Awesome. I found, you talk about like inviting a friend with you, that can work different ways. Like if it's a friend who is like part of your same group, your same race, or your same, whatever, like the group is that
Yeah.
you're wanting to, but that can be one thing. So you've got like somebody, and whatever to go with you into that space. But also it's
Right.
really interesting, I find, when I'm in a space that's predominantly people who are different from me in some way,
Mm.
and I'm there at the invitation of, or with a friend who is part of that group that I'm not part of,
Mm.
I find that sometimes like having that connection and this person to kind of like vouch for me means that people are more open with me than they might otherwise be, where they're sort of like, why are you
Mm.
here? And that's been a
Yeah.
really interesting experience for me, realizing that like many people, I think this is true of all minority groups. I think it's true. Like I see it in myself as a gay man that,
Yeah.
sometimes when you're interacting with people who are not part of your group, you present a version of yourself that you think will be more comfortable to them,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's, and then
Excuse
it's
me.
like if they're like but then like if they know somebody who's like part of it, then it's sort of like, oh, okay, you're okay, then like, okay, then we can
Yeah.
kind of let you see the real us a little more. So like
Right.
that's interesting
Yeah.
how that kind of thing happens.
Right. That happens. Yeah.
um Dude, Human is wonderful.
Yes.
Everybody
Thank you.
should see it.
Yeah. Go
So
watch it online.
where should they go to see it?
Yes, go to findyourrainbow.com. So Find Your Rainbow is where you
With
can
one R.
find, with one R, is where you can find information about Hope Alive. The Follow Me Marky Lee will be up later this week. That shows little bit more about that project. But on findyourrainbow.com, you can watch Human. You can there's a link to listen to Terrence's album. There's going to be information about the show soon, and that's just going to be constantly updated. So the feature film is going to be on there. So just go to findyourrainbow.com. On Instagram, my Mojo King underscore. So follow me on Instagram. And fair warning, it's a wild ride. I have a lot of fun and I take a lot of selfies. So that you're just gonna have to get used to it. It's a lot of fun. I'm all about interacting, so let's just DM back and forth. And yeah, so Instagram Mojo King, website is findyourrainbow.com. And yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Dude, thanks for doing this. I really
Yeah.
appreciate this conversation. It's I don't think we saved the world or anything, but like it's
I think we took a step.
yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
hey. What's the phrase? The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step or something like that? Yeah,
Yeah.
anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
took a bunch of steps today.
Also it's just fun. I always enjoy hanging out with you, so I
Yeah.
appreciate
Yeah, you
the
too.
chance to do this. So thanks,
Awesome.
and thanks to everybody for watching, and
Yeah, thank you
let
so
me
much for
plug,
watching.
yeah. And special thanks to my Patreon patrons who make it possible for me to do stuff like this. Special thanks to my Gold Star patrons, Terry, Larry, John, Bruce, Carol, Liz, and Tom. You guys are amazing. Thank you. I appreciate it. And extra special thanks to Matthew Adam for putting himself out there and doing this. And man, best of luck on all of this stuff, and keep me posted. And I know you will, and we'll keep everybody else posted. So
absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks, everybody. This will be on YouTube, and we're doing another one of these next Monday, back to the regular time. And so until then, have a wonderful week. Take care.
See you, everybody. Bye.